Well, hopefully we are live, and if not, I'll just talk to myself. But hey, everybody, we are dealing with some new technical fun stuff with Hump Day Hangouts, and if you're hearing this, then you do not need to refresh your live stream, but I'm just going to paste that on the page. We can't really get the stuff on there ahead of time, so we're dealing with it and getting it working. So anyways, I'm going to go down the row here and say hello to everybody that's here. It looks like it's all of us, but Hernan today, so I'll start at the bottom as I see it. Marco, how you doing, man?
I'm first. Wow, that's a shock. Well, I'm showing it again, guys. Look at it. Look at it.
Groundhog Day.
Dude. I know, like for years, I was just like what the whatever you call it on the screen, just an icon, because I wouldn't really come on camera. So I decided for a year I'm gonna turn on my camera every hump day. And this is what you see. This is what I get. It's raining right now, so my light is on, but I mean I'm in a t-shirt. I'm usually in just shorts and look, flip flops, and a tank top. But to be a little bit more decent, like on hump day, I will put on a t-shirt or a shirt. But that's it. You guys won't see me probably in a sweater until maybe December. One day out of the year, maybe two. It'll go down to 60 and I'll need some kind of hoodie or something. Other than that, guys, this is what it is. This is my fortress of solitude. This is my base. I live by the POFU code. I do what I choose to do, not what I have to do to get by. This is what you all should be shooting for. That's why you should be here asking questions and getting answers so you can get started on your path to POFU so you can strengthen your position of fuck you.
Well said, Marco. Well, let's go with Johnny Come Lately down here on the bottom. Hernan, how you doing, man?
Dude, I was literally waiting outside, knocking on Bradley's door for like 45 seconds. I was early to this meeting, but you guys wouldn't let me in because I'm Latino. I understand. You know, that's like passive aggressive kind of, racist type of deal that I live here.
Oh my God.
Here we go.
Dudes? I'm really excited to be here.
Good to see you, Hernan.
Yeah.
Awesome. Chris, how you doing, man?
Yeah, like similar as Marco, it's raining outside and it's looking like it's gonna be like this the whole week. So not too excited, but I can still go to the gym and that keeps my day up.
Nice. Bradley, coming up to you. How you doing today?
Good. Got everything squared away with this new
Besides not letting people
process.
in.
Yeah, besides that. Well, I'm sorry. I was trying to get, I was the man behind the curtain pulling all the strings to get all this shit to work again, as usual.
Well, hey,
I just had to shut down some windows.
About to say, before we start pointing fingers and drive everyone away, I wanted to mention real quick that if you haven't yet signed up, I think there's still just a little bit of time. Head over to pofulive.com. We've got over 100 people signed up to get early access to the POFU Live 2020 recordings. There is going to be a special deal for people who get there early, and we'll send an email out to them only. So pofulive.com. It'll redirect you to the opt-in form, and you can get early access as well as a little bit of a deal there. So some good stuff coming there. Let me pull up my notes.
Do we agree that we only let 50 people in?
No. Just kidding. No scarcity on this one. Just, we want people to grab it. And if you're on the fence, get access. We want to give you a deal, and we reward the people who take action. So if you sign up, get on the early access list, you will get a special offer, but it is limited in time. I can't recall the exact sequence, but it's either 48 or 72 hours until we release it to the rest of the subscribers at the normal price. So get in there and get access. Let's see. Also wanted to let everyone know, if you're new to Semantic Mastery, MGYB, Heavy Hitters Club, a frequently asked question we get is like, where should we start? A lot of people are looking at us for, updates on how to shield their site. You might see us talking about things that sound fun, like never worrying about algorithm updates. And we've got some free training available for you. And I'll paste the link, but it's theseoshield.com. You can go there and pick that up. If you're more on the agency owner or consultant side, if you want to get more clients, you want to grow your revenue, you want to scale a team, then 2xyouragency.com is the place for you. And if you're ready to grow your digital marketing business, then the mastermind is definitely something you need to be checking out. And you'll hear us talk about that from time to time. I'm not going to tell you all about it, but you can go check it out at mastermind.semanticmastery. That said, is there anything else, you guys, before we hop into questions?
No, just go check out the SEOshield.com because it's Rob put together a really nice drip training for like a 4-day training for the SEO Shield and why it works and all that kind of stuff. So, you know, we get that question often. So I would recommend you guys go check it out because you'll learn from it for sure.
Most definitely.
Okay, so we're good for questions.
Let's do it.
All right, I got the screen.
Let's do this.
Sweet. You guys have seen my screen, right?
Yep.
Yes.
Excuse me. All right, so the first one is Sammy. There's a lot of M's there. So he says, I remember many videos back, Marco mentioned getting into Wikidata to help strengthen the entity. What are some ways we can get backlinks from Wikidata? I don't know, because every time I've ever tried to ever add anything to Wikidata or create an account and add any data to it, it always gets suspended like within 24 hours. And removed, moderated out. So I don't know, Marco, do you have any tricks for that?
Yeah, get a guy like I got a guy, and get in Wikidata. I mean, that's just the way it is. When I'm the same as you, I tried to do it and I get booted. Same as Wikipedia. It's almost as bad, although they're not as anal. In Wikidata there and in Wikipedia, it's almost as bad. So why go through all that trouble when you might get banned? When I can just get a guy to do it for me, pay him, let him take all the risks, let him do all the work, since he knows what he's doing. And then if anything happens, then I get a guarantee. Now, up to a certain point, I think it's like 60-day guarantee. After that, I'm on my own, of course. Right? But that's how I do it. Like I haven't even tried since, I can't remember. It was a couple of years ago when we said, okay, let's try Wikidata.
Yeah.
And we tried getting semantic mastery in there legitimately. And it got banned, and it wasn't even spammed. It didn't have any back, nothing. And it got banned, and I still have no idea why. Nobody ever told me why. So I just stopped trying. I don't waste my time in places where they don't want me. I just find people who can get it in there, like Wikipedia, Wikidata, or anywhere else where I need to be for that matter.
Yeah, I tried myself like 3, maybe even 4 times and spent time doing, excuse me. I got something in my throat. I spent 3 or 4, or, you know, a lot of time trying to set up a profile. Same thing as Marco said. I'd set it up. I was going to do it in stages, right? So first, just create a profile and add, you know, like a company, for example, an entity, but then not put any backlinks or anything else, right? No linking out or anything. But same thing. I'd spent time setting up a profile and then going in and adding data, and every single time it got suspended almost immediately. So I gave up on that as well. I know we offer Wikipedia links, wiki links inside of MGYB, but Wikidata, I don't know where to get that from. Marco, is your guy to actually do Wikidata? Because that's not something I've found where I could purchase that.
Wikipedia and Wikidata.
Wow. Okay. Can we add? You know, we should probably add that in the MGYB if we can.
No.
Oh, this is your guy. This is not our guy.
No, this is my guy. And I'm not gonna flood him because a lot of times people can't get in there. They just don't have the necessary paper, right? The paperwork to get in there. So you have to go and there's a lot of things that you have to do. And I want serious people because it's not free, and it's not like a budget kind of deal.
No.
You know, it costs money to get into those things, so I don't bother publicizing. If somebody reaches out to me and says, hey, Marco, I need to get Wikipedia and Wikidata. Like I tell them before I put them in contact with the guy, this is how much it's going to be. Like I don't make any money off of it. This is how much it's going to be. Don't bug him unless you got the money in your hand and you're ready to pay. Otherwise, don't bother me and don't bother him. Don't waste our time.
Yes. All right, so William's up. He says, I have a local business targeting multiple cities and towns. Would combining local RSS feeds with my own councils and the local news, okay, and embedding a feedburner widget across multiple Web 2s help push rankings locally? If not, is there anything else I can do to push additional relevancy? Thank you guys as always. Okay, I've not tried that. It sounds like, I mean, it's logical that it could, because I do the feedburner widget, the buzz boost widget or whatever, you know, with the buzz boost feedburner feed, you can get an embeddable widget from a feedburner feed, which is great, because if you can create like a spliced feed of like what he's talking about, Rank Feeder, for example, Lisa Allen's product, which is really, really good for creating kind of like those co-citation feeds. It's great. And I've used that specific strategy many, many times, not for taking that Buzz Boost embed code and embedding it across Web 2s. That might work. I've not tried it. It's logical that it would. I mean, it's just like anything else that we would do with embeds, right? And we do that a lot. So, for example, we have the embed gigs in MGYB. That would be actually a good test that I have not tested yet. But to take that Buzz Boost embed code and submit that to an embed gig, right, for an embed run, and push it out and see where I've used it and how I've used it and seen without question a benefit from it is creating that spliced feed, like using Rank Feeder or some other kind of feed splicer, where you can add a bunch of local feeds. He says council. I've used like local news or local newspaper website feeds. I've used those. I've used feeds from the local government, so the municipal government website for whatever location it is. Event feeds or localized, like, you know, content type blog or event type calendar feeds. Those work good too. And then mixing in topical feeds, right? So combining both topically relevant feeds that are specific to whatever it is your business you're trying to promote, as well as location feeds, and then mix your own feeds into those also, right? So the feeds from your money site blog, as well as perhaps a GMB post feed, if you've got if you've subscribed to an app where you can pull an RSS feed from your GMB posts, like your Press Advantage press release feed for your organization, that's another feed that you can add into there. You can even put in your feeds from like your Web 2.0 networks, like you know, your syndication networks, like from WordPress or Blogger or Tumblr, and add those into that, right? So that you create this massive relevancy on a co-citation all within the same feed. And then I've taken that Buzz Boost embed code and embedded that in the ID page for that business, and then use that ID page and then run embed gigs for the entire ID page, right? So it's like a multi-tiered, or like what we talked about, the picture-in-picture effect, right? The never-ending, like, you know, picture type effect where it's stacking iframes and all that. So I've done it that way and then had really good success with that. And I've used that for multiple lead gen assets. And it's a great strategy. So, but I've not taken just that Buzz Boost embed code alone and run that through embed gigs. It likely would work. I've just not done that. So that would be a pretty cool test. But I think that's a really good strategy. You just asked what's another way that you could use that kind of a method for push relevancy. Like I said, use the ID page, and that's Amazon S3. That's where we prefer to host the ID pages, an S3 bucket. And then you could just embed that code into there and then take your whole ID page and do it link building to that and or embed gigs with your ID page itself. So any comments on that, Marco? Have you tested that, by the way?
Sorry about that. I was muted. No, I haven't tried any of that because you don't have to go to those extents. Local is pretty simple. We do the things that we do, and generally we can get the results we want. And if not, we just don't do more of it until we get the results we want.
There you go. So yeah, and Rank Feeder, guys, really good service for that, because it makes great feeds for that. So Vlad is up. He says, aside from using the S3 ID page, is there anything else we can use the Amazon S3 buckets for when it comes to link building tiers? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you can build websites with S3. There are several tools out there that kind of do that now. ADM, Authority, something builder, Earl. God, he's got a really cool like WordPress plugin that will build, like essentially create like a version of a WordPress site from a template, essentially, that it then creates. You connect it to Amazon S3 and it creates like basically a full-on website inside of, it's not a CMS, so it's not, it doesn't, but you can create a website in WordPress and then kind of export it directly into S3. And that's pretty cool. So they can be used great for buffer sites. Let's just put it that way. There's a lot of really cool things that you can do with S3 pages because of the authority that you siphon from Amazon. So I think they're one of the best type of like buffer sites that you can build. They load fast. They're easy to, you know, they don't even have to look all that pretty. You can set them to no index and still just pound the shit out of them, and they'll actually push power. So I think there's a lot that you can do with S3. You just got to get creative with it. What do you think, Marco?
I mean, there's a lot of stuff that you can do. The whole thing is, and I keep telling people why. There has to be a why you're doing all of these things when it's usually enough, as I said before, with what we already do. The things that we do, the way that we've set it up, you take care of the entity, you take care of the on page, you take care of the schema. Then you go off page and you start, you know, especially if it's local, you work inside that GMB, Local GMB Pro. That's the way that we use it. You run press releases, then link building, and then embed gigs and link building, and the magic happens. Like, why would you do anything else if that's already getting the results? You can only get like number one once. You can't get better than above the fold, but that all happens. So if you're already getting that with what you're doing, why are you looking for more? Unless you're just testing, then it has to be worth your time. If you don't need it, or if you're not trying it the way that we are, and you still need more power, it just means that the base isn't there the way that it's supposed to be. Your entity isn't right, your on page isn't right, your schema isn't right, and so you're needing more power, because if your on page isn't right, you're always going to need more power. And so the whole point is, if you take care of it from the beginning the way that you're supposed to, you're always going to have bullets in the chamber in case you need more. Someone comes along and takes you down for a moment, you got another bullet in the chamber. If you shoot everything at once and you have no idea what's going on, then what are you going to do if someone happens to come along and take you down? Well, you've already shot your wad. What the hell are you going to do? You got to wait and what?
There you go. Yeah, I mean, I've done a lot of experimenting with S3 stuff, and it works. It works well. Like, you know, you can rank S3 pages. The problem is a lot of times they don't, you know, if you're ranking S3 pages, it's great because it can push a competitor down or whatever, but or off of the page. But a lot of those, you know, unless you spend a lot of time in HTML and stuff, you know, they don't look great, right? And so, but there are actually some. I know Abs Ravji, he's got something that's coming out that is really cool that you can end up like cloaking or, you know, doing like an overlay of another site on top of an S3 page. And so there's a lot of stuff coming out on the S3 pages that, you know, if you want to experiment with that stuff, you know, just like Marco said, there's no reason why you shouldn't if you've got time to do that, because it can add, it's just like more stuff in your arsenal if needed. And that's, I think that's an important point. Christopher's up. He says, or Christoph is up. He says, what's the best way to steal a competitor's knowledge panel for a set of service area keywords? I have managed to outreach a competitor for about a month, but even though I am number one organically, their knowledge panel is still shown. I have an ID page, drive stack, and plenty of link building going along with citations, but it still won't budge. Any advice would be awesome. You have to power up the GMB. You know, the drive stack and all that, Marco will have some good input on this, I'm sure. The drive stack and all of that will absolutely help. I don't know how much activity you've put into the actual GMB itself, but I think that is a big part of it too. You know, making sure that you're posting often. You know, the local GMB Pro method essentially is, you know, geotagged images, you know, using the posting often, preferably to have images that are uploaded that were taken, you know, original photos from mobile devices and uploaded from the mobile device to the GMB. So if you got a client, that's something you need to task the client with. You know, there's a lot of things that can be done in the GMB itself to start building that authority. But yeah, the drive stack and everything else is certainly part of it. So Marco, what else would you say besides the local GMB Pro method?
SEO Power Shield, schema, proper schema, of course, organizational schema with same as and knows about everything. I mean, everything in there properly, because then that's going to go in your ad ID loop. And then press releases of reinforcing the brand. It's all about brand. It's all about your entity being better than the other guy's entity. That's how you get the knowledge panel. That's the only way that the knowledge panel happens, guys, is if Google considers your entity good enough to have a knowledge panel. So how do you accomplish that? Entity. If the entity isn't right, your knowledge panel isn't going to be right, and it's usually then their competitor who has the knowledge panel. Where you knock it off is proper schema. You don't even have to do on page. The only on page that you have to do is that schema. Then everything else takes place off page, because it's the SEO shield, which includes the ad ID, and then link building, and then an embed run and link building until Google sees that entity belonging for that keyword set. That's how it happens. I mean, you could get it other ways. You could get a Wikipedia page, but I mean, you'd have to have the documentation. Documentation meaning you're in media and you have paperwork all over the web regarding Joe. Okay, so Joe the plumber doesn't get one. He doesn't deserve a Wikipedia page. Larry the cable guy gets a Wikipedia page. So that's how you know. Sometimes people are thinking, okay, so do I even get a Wikipedia page? You've been around long enough where you have the documentation, where you are a known entity on the web, or you're related to a known entity on the web, then you belong in Wikipedia. Of course, you have to pay. Wikipedia pages can range from $1,000 to $2,000, depending on how much work needs to be done for you to get a Wikipedia page. But that's another way for you to get into that knowledge panel. If you can't get a Wikipedia page, then you do the things that I just told you to do, and you will take over that knowledge panel. But it's going to take power. I mean, it's not, citations aren't going to do it. And like doing things haphazardly. Okay, I'm gonna go here and do this, and I'm gonna go do some link building and see what happens. There has to be a purpose. You have to know exactly what you're doing so that you can just sweep that knowledge panel. And I guarantee you that if you do it correctly, you'll get rid of that knowledge panel, you'll replace it with yours.
There you go. Good answer. So the next question is from Curtis. Says, backstory, I have a client that has no internet presence at all. I am planning on purchasing your local GMB Pro training for them to quickly drive leads and sales. The next step to my plan is building them an SEO site and continue to grow their reach through organic traffic. I have two questions in regards to the plan. Is Local GMB Pro a current and updated approach to GMB? Yes, it's foundational. Like nothing's changed is regarding that because it's, it's again, it's like a fundamental, right? It's the fundamentals, how to manipulate Google My Business itself and how to get as much, squeeze as much or build as much authority to that as possible. So yes, it is updated. It's still current. It's all of the methods that are taught Local GMB Pro are still what I use today in my business, and I know my partners do as well. He says, and if my idea of fast tracking leads via GMB to the client and then building them a more organic SEO site the right path, or was there a better way to accomplish the goals? Yeah, I mean, you can absolutely do that. I've got several lead gen assets that I built that are just GMB assets. They don't, well, GMB and SEO Shield, but they don't have like a self-hosted website, for example. And, that's the only thing that I would suggest. I mean, you can absolutely do it with just GMB assets, but I recommend that you still have an SEO Shield even before you go out and get like, a domain and build like a WordPress site or whatever for that client or lead buyer. I would suggest that you go with the GMB and then an SEO Shield, because that's foundational also, right? That's part of our process. And you can get the G site as part of the SEO Shield, right? The Google site. That can be your primary website for that asset until you build, an asset on a regular domain, if you so choose. But you might not even have to do that, because you can rank the G site organically as well. Like that can be the website. So you don't have, I mean, there's certainly benefit, in my opinion, to having WordPress site, especially for a brand that you're going to be building for long term, but it's not absolutely necessary. I know Rob's got several lead gen assets that he builds out, or projects that he builds out. In fact, I think all of his projects are only on GSites. So
yes,
yeah. That's I as I was saying it, I remembered that he said that at POFU Live, that's all he uses is GSites. He doesn't use WordPress at all. So I would recommend Local GMB Pro absolutely, but adding the SEO Shield to that without question. And then you'll have the G site. So you'll have that website that you can start to build out the organic presence as well. And then you can always decide at that point whether you even need a WordPress site. So comments on that?
Yeah, the only thing that's changed in Local GMB Pro is what Google changed as far as the Google My Business listing is concerned. And whether you're going to go back and edit any of the vital information, the company name, phone number, address, all of that stuff that you should never change, because then you're setting yourself up for a suspension. Only the owner or you acting as the owner should be in there. In case it gets suspended, then the real owner can always talk to the Google rep and get it reinstated. But if you're in there and you're working through a GMB that's that's spam, they hacked, it's hacked into the map, then you're taking a chance on getting it suspended. So you have to know what it is you're doing. If this client, it has a brick and mortar or an office that they work out of, get that GMB for that person. Make sure that you have fully completed the information as much as you can before you send out for that pin. And then once it comes back, don't ever touch the information again unless you have to. And the owner should be aware in case it gets suspended. That's the only thing. Everything else, the way we teach you to do the posts, the way you go after the keywords, the way you look at the insights, the information that Google gives you, the way that you approach getting images, it hasn't changed. The training is, as Bradley said, foundational. It's being applied right now to my clients. It's been applied since it started, and it's going to continue to be applied, because once there's like a snowball effect. Google starts giving you 3-word terms and then 2-word terms, and then the 1-word terms come in, like you saw that with Mario's taxi when you were doing the case study, Bradley.
Yeah.
Right, he started appearing for just the keyword taxi, and so you knew that as soon as people were typing in taxi, looking for that tag wherever it was, the airport or whatever, Mario was being they were getting the impression, they were getting delivered Mario wherever it was in the 3-pack that it was, they were getting it, clicking, and you could see it. Guys started to get calls. That's how it happened. This is how we do it. Training is current, and I don't see any need to change it anytime soon.
Yeah.
Unless Google changes the foundational principles inside Google My Business, which I don't see them doing anytime soon.
No, especially because I've seen them, they're still adding to Google My Business. And just a quick note, I certainly agree with Marco that you should try to stay away from having to edit GMBs at all. But I've actually had some really good success recently. I just recently took on a new client and I had to do a whole bunch of edits to their GMB. And every time I go to click the save button after making edits, I always take just a second to pray to please don't suspend. Please don't suspend. And I've been really fortunate. I was able to go through and literally edit the whole damn GMB listing. It was like starting over from scratch. The phone number, the web address, everything. And fortunately, it didn't get suspended. And I've actually had several of my tree service lead gen assets that I've had to edit recently too. Fortunately, again, knock on wood, no, nothing's happened. But I just was reading in a Facebook thread, somebody that just went in and just did a simple change, and they just recently lost a valid GMB. So got to be careful, guys. I don't know what causes that. I know a few months ago, it was very, very Google had an itchy trigger finger. Like it was super easy. If you did anything, it would get suspended. I've seen a lot of that roll back, at least through the businesses that I'm working in. But I would absolutely caution you, if you don't have to make any edits at all, please don't. And like Marco said, if it's a spammed listing instead of a real bona fide listing that can be verified again if needed, I would recommend you don't make any changes if possible. But if it's a real business, a real bona fide business with a real location, then if you have to make changes, you got to make changes. Just be prepared in case it does get suspended. That you always got to be prepared for that. So
what I'm just saying is, if it's legit, prepare the owner.
Yes.
Look, dude, if for whatever reason, because it does happen even to legitimate businesses, if it does happen, then all we have to do is call Google, you as the owner with your paperwork, right? Because they're going to require paperwork, and we can recover it. So it's really no big deal. But if they don't know and they see their shit suspended, you're gonna have an angry client trying to get hold of you. So why not just avoid all that trouble and then let the client know, yes, it can happen, but since it's legit, then no problem. But if it isn't, and it's still a client, you got big problem. So avoid all that shit. Just do whatever you can or as much as you can before you send out for that pin, and then try to never touch it again unless, like Bradley said, you have to. If you have to, then what else can you do except go and pray to whatever God you believe in and hope that it doesn't get suspended. That's all you can do.
Okay, cool. So that was a good question. Mr. T, nice. Pity the fool. He says, is it safe to add keywords in a GMB name, brand name, service 1, service 2, service 3? I mean, is it safe? Well, technically you're not supposed to do it. Is it safe? I don't do it, but you see it all the time in GMB maps, right? In the 3-pack, you see it all the time. Spam. I mean, some of them are absolutely ridiculous that you see. It'll be like Joe's Plumbing, then the pipe symbol or dash or whatever, and then every fucking service that he's got, I swear, like it's like 8 different keyword sets that are all, or keywords essentially, that are all stuffed into the GMB name. And you see that sometimes, and it's a problem with GMB maps that you see in certain search queries. You'll see it more than others, but I've never done that, and I recommend you don't do it, just because even though I know that's still prevalent today, I don't want to do that and then have something, at some point down the road, it gets suspended because it's a spammy title, right? It's a spammy business name. So I keep it. The only thing that I do is for some of the brands that I have built for like lead gen assets, for example, because I don't like to just do standalone lead gen assets anymore, like, one-offs or orphaned lead gen assets. I try to build a brand out of any lead gen industry that I'm going to go in to generate leads. I try to build a brand around it, a pseudo brand, right? So the only thing that I will do there is I will name the GMB location, the brand name, but then I'll add or append the city that particular location is located in as it. So for example, like Joe's Plumbing Culpeper, Joe's Plumbing Fairfax. Even if the brand name is only Joe's Plumbing, I might append the name to it. And part of the reason, or excuse me, the city to the business name. And part of the reason I do that is because, especially when you get into like, looking at managed locations, if you got a bunch of locations under a manager account, which again, there's some reasons why you might not want to do that too. It's hard to determine which location it is because they all share the same brand name. So like, I like to add that because first of all, it does inject a little bit of additional relevancy, but it's kind of to me like a location identifier instead of like trying to stuff it or spam it with keywords. So that's the only thing that I do that, but I see it all the time in the SERPs or the 3-pack keyword stuffed business names, GMB business names. And I don't ever recommend doing that. Can you get away with it? Most likely, but I would encourage you against doing that. Comments? Moving on. Fitz is up. Good day, gents. Thanks for this platform to get at actionable answers to real world questions. Marco, can you drop the link for the charity? You can always count on Fitz, Marco, to ask for the link. I'm sure a couple of people here will love to learn something that works and helps a couple of kids stay in school for as little as $20 one time. Thanks, Fitz. We always appreciate you mentioning that. His question is, my client has a GoDaddy site that appears to have an iframe breaker. Have you come across that before? Yeah, not a GoDaddy site, because anytime anybody has a GoDaddy site, if it's a prospect that says, well, I've got a GoDaddy site, can you help me? I see only if we switch it over to something else. I won't work on a GoDaddy site because it sucks. However, it wasn't a GoDaddy site, but recently I just asked Marco about one of my brands for lead gen stuff at the server level, at the host level, they had an iframe breaker in it. And I asked Marco to take a look at it because apparently they just added that recently, because I've been able to iframe the site before. And then all of a sudden in the last like month or so, like I noticed that the iframes were all broken. And I asked Marco, like, why would this not work anymore? And he said, well, there's an iframe breaker in it. And he said, if it's not done at the, at the theme level within WordPress, then it's probably done at your server or your host level, but, in the server. And so sure enough, I contacted the host, and that was the issue. And they did not want to release or remove that. So I ended up migrating the site from that host to another host. And I just did that like 2 weeks ago, actually. So, not GoDaddy specifically, but have I come across that before? Yes. One of my own brands, like I said, I just literally migrated it to another server about 2 weeks ago. So that's what I would suggest. If you've got a site I don't know if it's a GoDaddy site or it's a site just hosted on GoDaddy hosting, But in either case, I would get it the hell off of GoDaddy, period. Okay. Get it to a better server and probably a better CMS if it is a GoDaddy type site that, site instead of just the hosting alone. But that would be my suggestion. Marco?
Yeah, run. Run from anybody who forces you to have things that you don't want on your server. You don't want an X-frame on your server. Why in the world would they install an X-frame breaker without asking you if you want one? Like, to me, it's ridiculous what they do. I love Liquid Web. I recommend Liquid Web. Those of you who have clients and say you're at the 5, 6, 7 client range, then that's enough to like bring them all together, get yourself a Liquid Web VPS and put them all on your own hosting. You charge a little more and you're going to have like fantastic customer service because they're right there. They're going to fix everything for you. They're going to help you migrate. They're going to take care of everything for you. And then you become your own hosting company through Liquid Web.
Yep.
I mean,
it's another source of revenue.
Yeah.
Also, I would just, I love Liquid Web as well. There's my 2 favorites are Liquid Web and WPX hosting, which was Terry Kyle's hosting platform. I can vouch for them. I'm using WPX hosting quite heavily right now as well. Their support is on par with Liquid Web's. Which is like, swear to you can submit, if you go to support chat and you submit within 60 seconds, you always get a reply and they're on it. So I can vouch for WPX. There are some limitations with WPX that you don't have with Liquid Web though. So Liquid Web is a little bit more expensive, but as Marco said, if you've got several, just a handful of clients and you move them over to where they're hosting with you instead, you can actually turn that into a stream of revenue. So those would be my 2 recommendations. How can I handle that? Yeah, again, run away from GoDaddy as quickly as possible. Also, since the new Google sites have an iframe breaker, what sites would you use to get the mirror iframing effect? Well, we still iframe. You still get the mirror iframe effect, just maybe not necessarily from the G site itself, because like, for example, like if you're using Press Advantage, you get the organization page and your website is iframed into the organization page as well as the Google map if it's for local, right? And then you iframe the Press Advantage page into like your ID page. So now you've got multiple iframes there, and you know what I mean? And you iframe your website in your ID page. And so, again, what I do is just link out to the G site now from my ID pages. So, there's a link, links out to it. Directly to it, but you can't iframe it, so I just don't iframe it anymore. But you can still get that mirror in mirror effect through all of the other iframe stacks that we built. What else is there?
You can still iframe on the new G site. There's a way to embed everything on there. We're still using those, so I don't see why that would be a problem. You can't take that and iframe it anywhere else. But if you're theme mirroring, like we recommend, and you're bringing your money site inner page into an error page on that G site, I think you're accomplishing. I don't want to get into an iframe conversation, but we're missing the obvious. The obvious is that you get a bounce back and forth, the mirror in mirror effect that I've been talking about for years, and people are just now discovering. You get that bounce, and it's a legitimate bounce that whatever it is that you have iframe on that G site is going to benefit. And not only does that benefit, but the G site benefits. And if you link build into either one, I'm not recommending link building into the money site. So no, Marco did not say link build into it. I do, but I know what the fuck I'm doing. You guys should, unless you know what you're doing. But if you're link building, then everything in that iframe, the source and the destination, they both benefit. And they both benefit almost as much. There's only there's very little atrophy or link power loss through that iframe. So you hammer it. That's what iframes are for. The foundation of Rank Your Shit Academy has not changed. It's still relevant to this day. 6 years later, almost since I started the journey with Dr. Gary, and it's still working. And we were talking to Delia last night in our mini mastermind. It's working better today than it was about a year ago. And not as well as it was in the beginning when we were ranking empty folders. And remember when we did it live?
Yeah.
We ranked an empty folder live.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? Those days are gone for all intents and purposes. But the power will build where you can still do that. You just have to accrue enough power, and it's all done through iframes. People are just forgetting how good iframes and embeds work. Go get an embed gig from mgyb.co and the Dedia and link build to those embeds and see what happens, man. Don't forget. People are sleeping on those iframes.
Dustin says, hey guys, what do you use for automated GMB posting? Well, I'm still using Citation Builder Pro, the GMB briefcase. Is that I haven't gone to the front end of that in quite some time, the front end website. I'm trying to pull that up to see. But we kind of helped. Yeah, this is it. So this is the GMB briefcase. That's what I'm using. I've been using this since, Shripad developed this, which was probably 3 years ago now, something like that. And it's come a long, long way, guys. This is a much, much better system now, like the dashboard, everything. This is a really good service. I know there's others out there. This is the one that I use. And it's just because we had Shripad, he's really responsive and everything else. But, when it was very crude in its very early stages, we kind of pushed this a bit because we were working with him to help develop some of the stuff like, features and things like that. And since then it's come a long, long way. And it's funny because I was just adding the new client that I got into the GMB briefcase I've got a VA that does all the blogging and all the GMB posts. So she has access, and I had to go add the new account, the new GMB location to this, and then add it to her sub account so that she could pull it up and post GMB posts and schedule posts and all that. And it was the first time I had logged into it in months. And I was just like, holy shit, it's way different. It's much more intuitive. There's a ton of additional features in there now. There's local rank tracking and all kinds of like map rank tracking, like with the pin grids and all that kind of stuff, like you've seen, I'm sure. All of that's available in here now. So it's become a much more robust tool. I've just been using it forever just because it was already built into my, my processes. And I didn't want to switch to another tool, even though I knew a year and a half ago, there were other tools out there that had more functionality. I just didn't want to go and kind of have to update all my processes. So I just stuck with it because it did what we needed it to do. And it's come a hell of a long way since then. So this is a good service. I would highly recommend you check it out. Any comments on that?
No, because I still get a VA to do all my posting.
Yeah. Well, I do too, but it's all done in that app. That's what I'm saying. She manages everything through that app now because she does a bunch of locations. So
yeah, I do a bunch of locations too. I just have the VA go in as manager and do it all.
BB says, hey guys, what's up, BB, by the way? He says, is it okay to use the same domains which have backlinks to a money page also as tier 2 links? Will it cause link atrophy? So you mean if you have domains that you're using to build backlinks to other domains, is it okay if you're building links, tier 1 links to your target property, to then use the domain that you built the links from to target tier 1 links and also? Yeah, but you got to be careful because you can create a footprint from that too, right? So can you do it? Yes, you can do it. And yeah, again, just like all these questions for the last several weeks, BB, have been similar in nature. So it's the same answer that I've given you for the past several weeks, is that there is a level at which, or a threshold at which, that becomes it produces diminishing returns, or they stop being counted altogether. So you got, again, it's the same answer that I've given for the last several weeks about building links from, a limited or the same domain. At what level, what number of links does it stop counting, or does it stop, does it produce a diminishing return? And I don't know what that is, because I think it varies depending on the authority or the strength of the source and all that kind of stuff. But so again, it's the same answer that I've given you before. Can you do it? Yeah. Can you have some benefit from it? You can, to a degree, to a point. And I don't know what that point is. And again, you have to also be careful about footprints when you start to do that, where you start linking from your source domains, essentially the ones that you're building links from, to multiple tiers within your entity assets. In my, different tiers out, you just got to be careful, because again, you can start to create kind of like a link map. It's very easy for the algorithm to look at the links and determine that, you've got a few key assets that you're using to produce links or to build links to your other assets. And that can be it can just get discounted altogether to where there's really no benefit to it. So again, similar to the answers that I've given the last few weeks, is you can get away with it to a certain point, but why? And that's really the question, is why. Comments on that?
Yeah. So you have domain A and domain B. Domain A is providing a backlink to domain B, correct? So
Yes.
Domain A has PageRank 1. Domain B is going to have, if that's the only link, so this is in a vacuum, maybe, so I can answer your atrophy question. In a vacuum, A links to B, and there's no links anywhere else, with A having PageRank 1. B is going to have something less than PR1, because the hop atrophies by 15% or less. So you're going to get 85% or more. I don't know if you get a 1-to-1 ever anymore. Used to, not anymore since Google introduced the link atrophy. All right, so that's A, B. Over time, both of those will become 0, because there's no other backlinks supporting either that PageRank 1 or that PageRank less than 1 but greater than 0.85. Simple math, guys, right? A, PR1, B, something less than 1 but greater than 0.85. That's how it works. All right, over time, nothing supports that, and so they will both lose, probably in the next cycle. That PageRank 1 will go to 0, and that less than 1, of course, is 0, because whatever is backing it up goes to 0. Something has to back up that PR1 and continue boosting it, or for some reason Google has to find that it can keep its PageRank 1 to keep supporting that PageRank less than 1 but greater than 85. I hope that made sense. What causes atrophy is something that Google inserts into that, right? It's part of the algorithm that will cause the link to atrophy over time. It's not magically delicious. It's not as if something that you do will cause it to atrophy. It just does atrophy, because that's how Google worked it out. You have to make up for that link loss somehow, and adding links to somewhere else is not going to support it. I think you're looking at this the wrong way. Go back and read the PageRank patents, so that you understand how PageRank works, how it accrues, and how it's divided, so that you understand what it is that you're doing. Because from this, I mean, we're working in a vacuum. You're going to end up with 2 PR0s or 3. Whatever it is, you're going to end up with 0, because the PageRank has to be supported from somewhere else. This is why we're always link building.
Yeah, and you can prevent atrophy through activity, right? Like that's one of the things that helps to prevent that. Is that correct? Like, in other words, a link is more likely to atrophy if it doesn't have ever any traffic on it, right? Any engagement.
Actually, you can build your own, right? Through activity, relevance, trust, and authority. I mean, you can boost your own, but the simple math says that you need more links to support that PageRank. You need more links.
Right, but
and
what I'm saying is that
people coming through that link, people coming through those links will help strengthen the entity, and you may be able to support your PageRank natively. I don't know how that works. I don't know if that's even possible, but the simple math, if we go to the PageRank math, is you need a link with PageRank 1 to push the next page to something less than 1 but greater than 85, then 0.85. Sorry, because there's at most a 15% loss per hop. Right? That's the math. That's the PageRank math.
Cool. Yeah, man, we could get into a hell of a discussion about that, because I knew we go down that rabbit hole. So Pavlo's up. He says, hey guys, I have 2 questions. Ifttt doesn't work when I'm posting, not updating the same post on the website. I'm not sure I understand that question. When you're posting the same post on the website, not updating it. Okay, again, I don't understand unless you're trying to repost the same post. That might be what you, okay, Pablo, if I'm interpreting your question correctly, you're saying that you are trying to repost a post, not update it, but just repost it so that it publishes. Is that it? And again, I know this isn't real time, so I don't know if you'll be able to answer that. But if that's what you're saying, I've experienced that sometimes, yes. And I don't know what causes that. So one of the things, like if you want to manually force a post to resyndicate, one of the things you can do is go in, if it's in WordPress, for example, and set it to draft it. So like essentially unpublish it, but you set it to like draft mode, save it, then set the scheduled publishing time for like, 3 minutes ahead of whatever current time is. Then save it so that now it's scheduled to publish within a couple of 3 minutes or whatever you set it for. And then sometimes you have to force it to refresh. So like, in other words, wait till that time passes, and once it's past the publishing time, just go visit the page or something like that, and that'll cause a WordPress cron or whatever to trigger, and that will force it back into the feed. And it will trigger, it's supposed to trigger as a new feed item at that point. I have experienced at times where it just doesn't work. And I don't know if it's a theme issue or what it is that causes sometimes that not to work. But usually that will do it. That'll force it to essentially reinsert it back at the top of the feed, and will detect it as a new feed item. And then republish, like it'll trigger Ifttt to fire the apps so that it'll resyndicate. However, there is, a specific ID, I think, for that, what is it, like a GUID or something like that, in the XML code, that if that doesn't update, sometimes it just won't trigger. Even if it's been reinserted to the top of the feed, it won't trigger because it's not detected as a new feed item. Like, in other words, if Ifttt is looking at that ID or whatever, and again, I'm not a coder, but I think it's like a GUID or something like that. Anyways, if it's looking at that and that hasn't changed, even if the date has changed, right? Then, and the placement of the post within the feed has changed. If that doesn't change, then it doesn't trigger. I don't know, because I don't work for Ifttt. I just know that I've experienced what you're talking about, if that's what you're talking about. There's 2 things that I've seen. There's 2 ways that I've remedied that. One is to use a plugin that works. What is it? Republish old posts.
Yeah,
that's one of them. Stand by. Let me pull that up real quick. It's republish old posts plugin. I've talked about this before. So this one right here, Infolific, I think is the name of the, Infolific right here. This one right here, there's a free version, works great. If you want to spend like $9 to get the pro version has a ton of additional features. This works really, really well. I don't know why this works better. So I've actually, like, where I've tried to manually repost or republish a post to force it to syndicate again, and it didn't work. And then I've added this plugin, set the parameters for it to force it to republish, and it's republished and it's worked. So again, I don't know what this does different than doing it manually, but I've had this plugin right here has worked. So you might want to try that. The other thing that I've done in that case is just taken the manually, in the case that I wasn't able to get it to work, period. And manually, I've taken the article and republished it onto like Blogger, for example, or Tumblr or something like that, and used that as the feed to trigger the other applets so that it ends up pushing out through the entire network. You can keep the same, essentially, attribution link and everything to push credit back to the original source, which would be your blog. But again, that's a very manual process, and I try to avoid that at all costs. And that's where a plugin like this will help. Okay. Second part of that, unfortunately, after 3 months, I can't see much ranking results from making SEO Shield, map embeds, press releases, etc. Question: where can I find a list of things that I can check or compare? Other words, where I made a mistake. Thanks a million. Okay, Marco, do we have something that we could point him to specifically, other than just one of our groups?
The SEOshield.com.
Okay.
and of course the SEO battle plan.
Okay.
I mean,
So the SEO shield,
that's step by step on what it is that you're supposed to be doing. And if you skipped any of those, then you're probably going to have issues. If your on-site is garbage, I'm not saying it is. So I'm not picking on you, Pablo. I'm not saying your on-site SEO is garbage. But in general, if it is, then you're going to really need to hammer it in order to get everything off-site to overcome the issues that you have on-site. So that could be a big issue. If your schema isn't right, if your entities, I mean, it could be so many things why you're having problems after 3 months, although you're at the mark where you should be seeing results. So if these things aren't working,
yeah,
there's issues, and you have to detect what those issues are. And I would start with entity, because right now, from everything that I'm doing, from everything that I'm seeing from people, what the problems that they're having are, it's usually entity, it's usually on page that's garbage and needs to be fixed, and it's all about schema. And once you get those correct on your website and working properly, and then everything else comes together, the power is going to flow correctly. But somewhere along the line, the power is getting shut off so that it's not flowing through the way that it's supposed to.
Yeah, and I would, again, I totally agree with Marco that, some of the things I would look into would be, first of all, your theme mirroring. How have you mirrored everything from your money site to your G site to your drive stack? All of that, has that been done correctly? I know we've even had mastermind members that have come in and, despite all the training that they've received, haven't done those things. And then they come to us and say, well, it's not working. And then I audit, because in the mastermind, we audit sites and think, we were happy to do that. And then I go look at stuff and say, well, you've got pages here that are like essentially orphan pages. They're not, there's no theme mirroring being done. There's like all this stuff that just gets overlooked or skipped. And then they blame us and say, well, your methods don't work. No, it's like the guy that we had is in our mastermind or syndication academy. I can't remember, but remember he wanted to rank for DUI attorney. What was it?
Toronto.
Ontario,
Toronto. One of those
Toronto or DUI attorney Toronto. I think it was Toronto, but he did two like really short blog posts to his syndication network and said he wasn't ranking for DUI attorney Toronto. Your shit doesn't work. So all I'm saying, Pablo, is I'm not saying that's your problem. I'm just saying that would be one of the first things that I would check, is make sure, Marco says on page, or else you can just continue to hammer the off page stuff, which you certainly can do. But you can get usually a lot better results just from, in my opinion, with less work and less money by fixing all the on page stuff first. So mirroring is what I would check. But then also, like Marco said, you can just keep hammering away. And the entity stuff, there's no question. That's a big factor right now, for sure.
Like a simple thing to go check right now, Pablo, is take your brand. So just whatever it is, like DC Plumber, right? Without quotes, without .com, without anything. Take your brand, whatever your brand name is, and if you don't dominate page 1 for your brand, then you have entity issues, and you need to fix those before Google is even going to pay attention to you. Because there's another brand that I can guarantee that Google is liking more than yours, and is considering that the entity for that keyword set. And so you're always going to have problems. You fix those, and then you hammer it.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Jim Dubs is up. He says, hey, gang, question about drive stacks with older stacks. There was a script to rebuild the stack on a set schedule. I believe this feature was lost when the new style GSites were implemented. Did you figure out a workaround for this?
No.
Okay.
No, because that was strictly for the classic.
Yeah.
The new ones don't need a script.
So do the new stacks rebuild automatically? No, they don't, right? Because we don't have a script.
Right.
Okay. One other question, if there's time, have any of you guys tried training OpenAI in a niche field to write unique content for you, tier 2 or beyond sites? Thanks again. No, but wasn't Adam just talking about that?
Yeah.
In Slack? Adam.
Yeah.
OpenAI, like
Yeah.
I haven't even played with it yet, so
You
Yeah,
can't.
there's a whole lot of crazy
They won't
stuff
let me
coming.
in.
Yeah, it's still in closed beta. So yeah, there's some crazy stuff coming down the pipeline. I was actually just looking at some stuff right now with the previous version just to get up to speed because I haven't done any coding in several years. So anyway,
Yeah,
there's gonna be some nutty stuff coming down.
I'm looking for, just give me 1 second, guys. I paused the screen for a minute, but I know we're out of time. But I just found this one, and I was looking at the okay. So I was looking at what Adam posted in Slack to us about what you were just talking about. It, the AI or whatever. Was it GPT-3 or some shit? What's it?
Yeah, GPT-3 is the current iteration that comes from a company called OpenAI or a collaboration. I forget exactly what they're.
And so I started looking into that.
Funded by Elon Musk or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Anyways.
When I was looking into that, I came across this. Has anybody played with this? I just signed up for it today and started playing with it, but the content came out like shit. So I don't know, but I only played with it for like 10 minutes. No kidding. So. No,
but that's always the problem. The problem is getting the content where a human won't have any problems with it, right? Because we'll know it's a bot. What's great about OpenAI is that they're getting it to the point where it's difficult for a normal person to recognize that it's a bot writing from a database or wherever it is that you're gathering your content from. It's really, really interesting.
Yeah, it's the best explanation I've heard is that it was like it's on level with like a freshman in a college level to say, of course, someone who's a master or a professor of an area would understand that there might be issues with it, but to anyone just of general knowledge, they probably wouldn't be able to tell. And at some point, like that's good enough. It's not that you're faking content, it's that the content is that good that it's good enough, for certain things. If you're trying to use this to write a brief for a lawyer, it's going to fall flat on its face. Yeah. But if you're trying to get an article about how to water your flowers, why not? This isn't spam. It's actually how to water your flowers. So some interesting stuff there.
Yeah. And I just quickly, and it looks like Jim says he's been training GPT-2. How the hell did you get access, Jim?
So you can get access. So that's the version, I believe I know it's been out for a while. I forget when it was released.
Oh, that's the 2, number 2.
Yeah.
Gotcha. He says it's getting pretty accurate with the data set I'm providing it. So that's cool. I might want to play with that. Just real quick, I know we're out of time, but at POFU Live, we had a couple people talk about using phrase.io, I think it is, and Article Forge 2.0, which is like an AI content generator that I signed up for a trial account about a month and a half ago. And, I canceled because the content was garbage. But the way that I was told that it can work well is to generate content with the Article Forge and then optimize it with phrase. And so that might just be something else that you guys want to look into. I haven't done that just yet, but I'm probably going to start. I got an account at phrase and I just haven't started messing with it yet, but I plan on it because it looks pretty cool. So
yeah, it's pretty nice. Can't confirm. I've used it for a couple articles. It's
answer
nice.
To Pablo, it's called the Heavy Hitter Members Only Club. Find us in Facebook, man. Join us. Heavyhitter.club.
Heavyhitter.club. Yeah, you can go there too. So, and by the way, looks like Jim said, where did I just see that? Okay, yeah, the GUID thing. Yeah, he says, I could be wrong, but IFTTT triggers on the GUID. Thanks for confirming that, Jim. So anyways, all right, guys, thanks everybody for being here. We will see you guys next week.
Adios.
Later.